everyone. Welcome to our next level Alexandria reporting webinar. We're excited to have you all today. I'm here joined with Jake Vanderlinden.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to be taking care of the webinar today. I'm Josh Hutchings. I'm sure you've talked to me on the phone before. So our goal today is to get through a bevy of reporting that follows your general year or school year. For those of you who don't have a standard school year, sorry. I'm sure a lot of the reporting will fit your needs though as well. We are very open to suggestions for what kind of reports we're going to be talking about. So any that we don't cover, keep in the back of your mind and send through to what we are calling their Q&A. Jake will be taking care of the Q&A as I present. And you should see a bevy of buttons down at the bottom of the screen. Those are all your tools. You should see a little QA button there. If you click that, that'll allow you to submit your questions through there. To start off with, go ahead and take us to our next slide. Oh, there's our funny faces, but you see those already, so you don't necessarily need to see that. And just wanted to show you our agenda. So as we go through those questions that you may have, please feel free to submit to Jake. We're going to try to answer them as we go through the various reports. For ones that are bigger, we may answer at the end. We're going to have a little portion of Q&A at the end, and Jake may be answering some as we go as well. Notice that the chat is turned off though, so you do want to submit all of your questions through Q&A. So, but to start off with today, if you go ahead and look at our agenda that we've got up there, we're going to set up and run reports in Alexandria, go through the buttons of the interface, talk about little tips and tricks of how to set up your reports better, go over scheduling, emailing, all that. Then we're going to move on to beginning of school year reports. Then next, ongoing reports needs throughout the year, and the end of the year reports needs. So, and we've been doing about 3 examples from each, and you'll see as we go through, it'll kind of focus on each one of our major sections of reports: copies, patrons, circulation, etc. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and disable the visuals for right now. Can't have my pretty face distracting you while I'm talking about things. So to start off with, we're going to go ahead and go to our how to set up Alexandria and run reports in Alexandria. All right. Now the 3 main little topics to consider here is selecting the correct report. So I'll talk about how to do that in the interface. Also incorporating the proper select bys. Now select bys in the program, that's what you want to see on the report, the actual content. So that's what's going to be displayed. And the options and output formats, you'll see that's under the options tab, which we'll be looking at. That's how you tell what the report will look like. All right, so getting to our Alexandria interface, I would imagine most of you already know how to get to reports, but I'll walk us there. So starting off in your library and circulation interface, you would just go to Tools. Under Tools, you'll see Reports is at the top left there. We'll go ahead and open that up. And for those of you who don't know, you do have the option of setting up quick shortcuts or just typing your URL to get yourself where you want to go quickly. So you'll see here under Reports, we're under /reports. Make note that that happens throughout the program and all its screens. So if you're a heavy-duty reporter and you want to make yourself a quick link to get there, or a little bookmark button, that's how you would do it and save it. For those of you who may not have access to your own data and want to play with some demo data, we also do have a live customer-facing demo database at demo.goalexandria.com. So that's demo.goalexandria.com. Make note that you guys can go there anytime, and we have a bunch of examples of data that we've set up about how you might be using, the program in your day-to-day lives. So, popping back to our report screen, to start off with, make note that we've got categories along the left. If you're wanting to use our little search bar, which you'll see off to the right here, usually you want to be under all reports. So if you're looking, say, for like a lost report, you type that in and it brings it up. The reason I say to be under all reports is that will allow you to search the whole group of reports. We'll go ahead and back out of our lost. Next, if you're just looking for a report and maybe you're not sure where to go, pay note to the section. So our patrons reports, that cover reports that will talk about your patrons and all of your patron information. I'm sure all of you pretty much know the difference between titles and copies, but just to make note, titles, that's all of your MARC record information. So that's the publishing year, the date, your subjects, your summaries. Copies, that's all of your hard copy information. So that's the hard copy you hold in your hand. So that's going to be the status of it, whether it's checked out or not. That's its barcode. That's how much, the replacement cost of it. That's all copy related information. It's also where you print copy barcode labels. Inventory, we all know about that, the dreaded time of year. Collection analysis, that's going to be for large numbers referring to your collection. The most popular there is super summary. We'll talk about that. Circulation, that's all of the movement of your books and items between them and between your patrons and your users. So that's where you get your lost, your overdues, your hold reports, etc. Statistics, another section for usage, which we'll talk a little bit more about, usually correlates best with if you use statistics groups under your policies. If you do not, it's not a big deal. A lot of folks don't get into that kind of usage generally, but if you're looking at it, it's a great little handy set of reports. Periodicals, that's pretty straightforward, and system reports. So that's for more behind the scenes, like larger system stuff, including unused barcodes and any command barcodes for those who want those little cheat sheets. Perfect. Also, when you're under the reports, you still do have access to, the help menu up at the top right. Make note that we've got our quick and our saved buttons here. Quick is anytime you want to set up a report from scratch. Saved are any of the reports that you've saved and set to the side. Here you'll see I've got a bunch of demo ones that we have set up by default. If you're wanting to filter your saved ones to, say, your own that you've created, you can turn on that button there and it will show you just the ones for a particular operator, or ones that maybe you've made a favorite. And you can click that and it will break it down there. A lot of folks will have saved reports for all of their different, say, homerooms or grades. And so sometimes it can turn out to be a lot of reports. And those can be handy ways just to bring up the specific ones you want. Anytime you want to manipulate a saved report, you do have to unlock it as well. And then click on it and it'll give you the options to do any changes, such as make it a favorite, change the name. So if you want to make sure that it's easier for you to find, you can call it Nancy's Copy Labels Barcode Report, whatever's easiest, and go through the various tabs. A lot of folks find that they have to change regularly the email addresses that those go to. So if you're needing to alter the email, you can pop under the notification tab, and we'll be going more through these tabs as well as we look at this. So, all right, so to back out of this saved report, also make note that if you're wanting to modify or remove a report, you can also duplicate it to create extras. So say if you're creating a bunch of reports to go out to do different homeroom teachers, this is a quick way to avoid having to set it up again and again. You just come under here and duplicate, and boom, you've got a brand new one that you can just change the name of or change the email for. Or you can remove a saved report here as well. So now taking a look at a general report interface, I've already talked a little bit about it. First off, you select maybe the section you're looking for. Let's say I want to run just a quick report of my copies, all the items in my collection. Maybe I want to look at what barcodes have been used, figure out if there's some messy ones in there. So I would pop under copies and information, and generally the information section of these has just general info about that group. So here I just want to list, so I'm going to choose a copy information report. You'll see it brings up two tabs for me down below, the selections tab and the options tab. The selections tab, that's where I set up what I'm going to see on the report. So this is the group of stuff that's going to show up. The options tab, that's how it's going to look. And usually you want to jump between either or, especially for a report that you're going to be running a lot. There's no limit to how many reports you can run. So feel free to jump in, try a couple, try them different ways, see which data works best for you. If you don't see the selections down below here that meet your needs best, you'll see we do have the option to click a Show Additional Selections button. Make note that there's a little scroll bar here off to the right, and you can scroll down. Now, some folks, with the sizing of their browsers, they don't realize that maybe this bottom bar might be cut off. So for any of you who might have this up and aren't seeing this like blue bar down at the bottom, you might need to pop under the preferences for your browser and do some zoom work there, or maybe some resizing with your buttons up at the top left. Now I'm on a Mac and I'm in Firefox, so if you're in a different browser, it may look a little different. So you might need to tinker with it a little bit. An important thing to say here too is if you are ever having trouble, feel free to utilize our customer support team as a resource. We're all really familiar with troubleshooting little things about reports, about the format or the layout of the screen. So I would rather you call in and get a quick and helpful answer to your issue than to get frustrated and spend a lot of time playing around with it. So now, important to notice, other than these select bys, are your format options. Under options, we usually have 2 drop downs, and this will change per report. So make note that it's not going to look the same for all of them. The sort by drop down, this is the order of the information on the report that you're going to see. So this, if I want to see it in numerical order by barcode, I would choose that. If I want to see it alphabetical by copy call number, I would choose that, etc. Format, that's the layout and what specific amount of information is going to be on the report, or how detailed it will be. Our one line usually refers to a very nice, simple one line per item, per patron, per copy on that report. The one line landscape, of course, is just flipped around, and it keeps going on from there, usually with summary being the biggest or the heaviest. So if you find that you're not seeing the information you need on the report specific to your copy, you may need to go ahead and hit complete or detailed, and that'll give you more information about your specific items or patrons or whatever you're trying to report on. So this is a great place to try a couple of these and see which one works best for you, like I was mentioning a moment ago. Now, once you've identified the report that you want and how you want it set up, let's say I'm gonna run this for all copies starting with the letter A, and I'm gonna leave it on one line, but I do wanna have it sorted by a barcode so I can see all the barcode numbers used by my A. If this is a report I'm gonna run regularly, I would click Create Saved Report down at the bottom right. So this is the time that you'd wanna set up for, say, like your homeroom list, or your hold list for your beginning of the week, or maybe every day if you do holds regularly. And you can come under here and give it whatever name you'd like, hit OK. You'll see that then takes it over to our saved reports where I can set up more specific things about it, such as how often I might want it to run. And that's just under our schedule tab here. And it's pretty dynamic about how often you can want it to happen. So a lot of folks will set these up at the beginning of the year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about beginning of year reports. That way you have all of your reports set up and to help you do a lot of that work for you. Because reporting can be a lot of extra work, especially if you have to come in and do it every day and tinker with it every day. So automating as much as you can is the best way to go. So if it's daily, weekly, monthly, you'll have different options based upon how you're wanting to set it up. So if I want something to run monthly on the 17th, I've got some special financial report I have to run, and then I'll have it run at 8 a.m. in the morning. That way I get it right as I get into the office. And then if I pop under the notification tab, I can enable the email notification, and I can have it sent directly to my email inbox. And you can also have multiple email addresses in here, just separated by a comma. So if you've got a coworker who needs to see the same report, or maybe you have days off, that's a great little feature to utilize. That also helps you to save you from making extra duplicate reports if you don't need, if you're sending the same info to the same person. Perfect. And then also the lesser used feature, you can upload it to a FTP server. Maybe a little bit more of a helpful thing for your techs, or somebody who's managing the data in a different way. But that's just what that tab is. For those of you who don't know what an FTP server is, don't worry your head about it. It'll be okay. A lot of people don't use them. So, all right. So that's kind of our general layout of our reports. Now we're going to go ahead and start off talking about our specific reports. And you'll remember beginning of the school year reports is where we wanted to start. I'm going to go ahead and walk us through a copy barcode label report. And this is a pretty contentious report for a lot of folks, but talking about it today, I'm hoping we can make it a little easier for everybody. First and foremost, you're really just going to be choosing one report. That's this top one here. Now you see I got to it by going under copies and choosing labels. Just as I talked about earlier, using those category tabs for yourself and walking yourself into it. And the top one there are 3 by 10. Now what that refers to is 3 labels across the sheet and 10 down. And these label sheets that you're going to get, you can pretty much use any. We provide them, so you're always welcome to get them from us and make it nice and easy. We even pre-print them, so if you want to skip this process altogether, you can. You can order pre-printed ones through us. But sometimes it makes it nice that you can print your labels right there in your library as you receive donation books, or you buy some from a particular vendor that doesn't label them for you. You can pop under here and set this up. Make note of some of our little helps here that talk about it, such as note for labels to print correctly, set your printer scaling to none or 100%. We'll look a little bit more at that, but that becomes a common issue in printing out barcode label reports. Now, the most common selection that people use for this report is usually a date range, the day that they added the books. Oftentimes it ends up being that day. So say I've added 15 books today, I can come under here, set day, using that little calendar, and specify the day and today, or you can type it if you like. Now, if it's also easier, you can click show additional selections, and you can specify maybe a barcode range or a specific list of barcodes. Say you wound up having a few books get damaged and you need to specify just a group of them, you can come under here and specify those barcodes. Once we've set up what books we want to print labels for, we now pop to options, and we're going to tell us what we want those labels to look like. Now, I have mine maximized too much, so I'm going to zoom back just a little because I don't want to have that little bottom bar cut off. There's a good example. All right. So say it's easiest for me to put these on the books in call number order. I could leave it like that, or you could change that, and that's going to set the way the labels are actually printed. So you want to make sure you're making it as easy as possible for yourself to get them from the sheet to the book. So pay attention to that sort by. Labels to skip, that's if you've already used, say, like half of your label sheet. That gives you the option of specifying which ones you're not going to try to print on, because we don't want to accidentally, skip printing, or we don't want to throw away sheets that we've used half of. So I'm going to say 4 just so we can demonstrate it to you. And then label copies, 1. That's usually if you want to have, say, duplicate labels for some reason, if you've got some kind of like sheet protector in the back that it needs to be under. Folks have different needs in their different libraries. But for most of you, I would imagine you're just going to be having 1 label being printed for each book. Now, this is where it kind of gets a little fun. This is where you can set up what your label is going to look like. Now, this is our default that we have set. So if you're going to be playing with this and creating a brand new template for your barcodes, I usually suggest creating a saved report once you're done, just to help you avoid having to do this again and again, because it can be just a little work to finagle it. Now, each one of these fields here can be set up to have different information in it. Right now, we've got call number right here, right above the barcode, and you'll see it's just taking up 1 line, whereas the barcode label, the image itself, is taking up 2. Say I want this to be a bit bigger. I can pop over here under my data, and you'll see I've got a lot of options. I can choose to have this be empty. And then what I can do is I can pop under here, and I can change the size of this brand new big space to 2 rows. And that means I will have something in here as big as what the barcode image is. I can pop back under here, and I can set call number again, and you'll see now it's nice and large. And you can do that anywhere on this report. So depending on what your labels maybe already look like, which I normally suggest standardize, make them look similar, or if you're wanting to start like a good new labeling system, you've got a lot of things you can do here. Maybe you don't like the title being on there for some reason, and you want your barcode number to be larger. You can do the same thing. Yep, and I don't need to change it. It just stayed. You've got a lot of different options. Maybe you wrap your barcode labels around the side of the book, and you need to come under here, and you need to have everything set to the left of the label. You can do that as well. A lot of different options. Folks find that they oftentimes do like bolding their text as well, because that makes the text pop that much more. If you feel it's necessary, you can do that. And last but not least, for those of you who may have a color printer and you want certain terms or whatever to pop that much more, we do have the option of specifying different colors for the labels. So, and then like I said, normally I'll suggest creating a saved report. That way, and I'll go ahead and just rename this Josh's barcode labels. Hit OK here. And now, anytime I need to run a brand new set of my new barcode labels, I can just come under here and change the date or my select by, and I hit run. It's all set to go. I don't need to come under here and refinagle with this. I might need to change my labels to skip, possibly. But other than that, it's set to go. So that's making the saved report option and these little features work for you. So that way you don't have to work as harder every single time you want to run barcode labels. Now let's go ahead and run it just to see. I think I might need to change my select by just to, okay. I think I actually do have some books that were added today. So let me go ahead and run this. And we'll go ahead and show you. So when I click run, make note there was a little fun animation that gestured us towards the operation management window up at the top right corner. The operation management window is one of your most handy tools in the program, especially if you run a lot of imports, you run a lot of utilities to modify your data. Don't forget to look here. The reason I say that is this is where you can view your reports. Yes, that's handy and open them, but if you run a utility or an import, you can come here and you can see exactly what happened when you ran that. So don't forego using this great tool in the program. So here's our little report that we ran, our label report. I'm going to go ahead and hit our PDF icon. Now, for those of you who aren't seeing this, it's probably a preference that you already have specified for your browser. That's okay, whatever works for your needs. I probably suggest, if you're wanting to just open the reports immediately so that you can use them or view them, setting it to open and make sure you click that little do this automatically for files like this from now on. The reason I suggest that is it helps you save 1 or 2 steps so you don't have to deal with this screen every time. So I'm going to go ahead and open that report. Oh, and I probably changed my selections in a way so that it didn't pop up with any labels. Let me just alter this slightly. And we'll go ahead and save that and run it, because I really want to show you guys what the label report looks like. All right, here we go. We'll go ahead and open her. There we go. So you'll see we've got the colors we specified. It went ahead and skipped 4 labels, kind of as I said under that preference. So you're not seeing those there. So that way when we physically go to print it, it's not going to have a hiccup on us. I'll go ahead and make it a little bigger for it so it's easier for you guys to see. All right. Now, a really important thing to pay attention to, and I mentioned this a moment ago with the scaling or the format of like 100% or none, is when you go to physically print, you're going to have print options. Now, pay attention. This report has opened essentially outside of Alexandria. So these print options aren't a part of our program. It will be printing based upon whatever application or program other than Alexandria that you've chosen to print from. So I know that's a little confusing, but usually it's something like Adobe. Me being on a Mac, I'm printing using Preview. You'll see up at the top left. So depending on what program you're viewing it in, it's going to look different. So you might want to spend a little time making sure that everything's set up the way you like the first time you print. And then usually most programs will save those preferences you put in. Now, right off the bat, you'll see mine says it's scale to fit. Now, that concerns me that maybe it's scaling it down and it doesn't have it at 100%. If I change it to scale, this one has it set to 90%. That means it's still sizing it down. So I'd want to make sure that I had it at 100. Or that I would have it set to none. Now, like I said, the terminology is going to be different. So look for something that says, format, sizing, scale. That's where you want to make sure you've got it set just as it is. The program always drops its image for the barcodes right in the middle of the page. The only two places you can change that is here under these preferences or on your printer. So if you find that maybe you're using an older printer or a printer that prints and kind of shifts it a little bit, maybe the rollers are old, you might want to try a different printer if you're finding a little bit of deviation in that way. So it's a system that you have to work out that first time you begin to print the labels to make sure it looks good. And if you haven't printed labels before, I always suggest printing those labels on a blank sheet of paper. That way you can hold it up into the light in front of you and you can make sure that the labels sit right above. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. And we're going to go ahead and bring up our next report, student barcode labels or library cards. So let's go ahead and pop back to our reports here. Now, since we're talking about patrons now, I'm going to close our copy section and go to patrons. And let's talk about the patron labels first. So I'm going to go ahead and choose our label section here. And then off to the right, I'm going to choose our patron barcode labels. And you'll see we've got it set up as the same report format, 3x10. So it's going to be very similar to your item setup. It just has some key differences. Obviously, when you're selecting your patrons, the selections are going to be specific to them. So if it's by homeroom or by a grade, or if you need to print them based on a barcode range, so your patron student ID number range. So you'll want to specify that. And then under options, you're going to see it's pretty similar to our items. We just need to specify what order we're going to use them in. Now, people oftentimes use these barcode labels to put on, say, ID cards that the kids use when they come into the library. They use them, on internal things there for like holds. It's up to you guys how you want to use them or if you even need them for your habits. Some folks will add a P to the barcode. That's probably not something you would have set up in your library. That just helps you to identify what a patron barcode is as opposed to an item barcode, but it's not necessary. Same preferences for skipping labels or how many label copies you want. And your selections under here are going to be a bit different. They're obviously going to be more patron oriented. Now, a little key difference is you can set up whether you want these labels to have a first and then last name or a last and then first name. So whatever is easiest for you to see on the report. And I'm going to make this bigger. I usually like the big ones. I like things to pop. So, all right. And once you've got your label all set up, you'll just go ahead and hit run. Now do make note when you run a report, it will have the little red dot there next to your operation management wrench, just to specify that a new report is waiting that you've ran. So that's a good indication that you successfully ran the report. So here's our report here. If I go ahead and click that and open it up. There we go. There's an example of that. All righty. Perfect. Popping back here. All right. And I also wanted to mention our library cards as well. There we go. And you've got a few different options for how you might want to print those library cards. You've got the 2x5s or Legacy. Legacy is an older format that we have in the program. You may not use it. That's just fine if you don't. You can just disregard it otherwise. This is a really long library card, so I'm going to minimize just one more time so we can see that whole layout. So same selections that you'd come by. So we'd pop under here, specify if I want to see kids, in particular grade with a particular name. So if you're needing to print it just for one person, You can come under here and you can enter their last name and just print a new, say, library card for that specific individual. Same thing with those barcode labels. Make note that this is telling you that it's for common business card stock or shipping labels, the 2" by 3.5" or the 10 per sheet. Avery sells those, but I know there are other companies that do have them as well. So, and again, if you're going to be using something from another company, just make sure you test it first before you actually print it on what is your desired end printing material. So, also you can include pictures with these. So if you actually do use pictures in your program, that's a handy little way to customize that library card a little bit more. So, and if you aren't a system that uses library cards, you can disregard this altogether. That's no problem. Also, where you're going to talk about account information email reports. Now, where this is handy is if you just need to communicate to your kids the information that you've set up for them in the library, or your users, if you've got people other than just students. This is handy because you may have entered all their information in, including a login and a password. You need to be able to communicate that to them so they can then log in when they're wanting to use the program, whether they are running, setting up their lists for like their reading lists, if they're going to be running reviews or doing reviews. All right, and to do that, you just pop under the account status summary. And the account status summary has similar selections. So if you're needing to send it out to your whole group, you really don't have to use many selections. You may do it per, oh, sorry, I accidentally clicked the wrong one. I meant the account introduction. That's my mistake. Sorry about that, folks. Even us perfect trainers make mistakes. So the account introduction is the one I'm referring to. This is, and we'll take a quick look at it so you know what it is. And some of you may not have seen this before. We actually have a lot of fun little hidden gems throughout reports. And so if you ever go to your public library and you see that they do something and you're wanting to apply that at your own school library, or if you're at a public library and you guys are wanting to implement something like that, that you see, talk to us, ask us questions. Maybe we can say, oh, you know what, we do have a report like that. So we're also very open to any suggestions you have for new possible reports or tweaks to our reports. And you've probably heard this from many of the techs, but please, we want to hear your feedback. Not just in general about reporting, but also, today from our webinar, we're going to be sending out a survey at the end, and we hope that you guys will all take the time to fill that out. There you can give us more detailed feedback about whether you liked the webinar today, whether you feel certain topics would have been better, maybe if you have questions about specific reports, use that survey for those reasons. We hope you all take a moment to fill it out. So, all right, so start going back to our report for account introduction here. So you set up whatever specific group you want, say if it's for a particular homeroom. And then under options, here is text that will show up on that. So when you need to communicate instructions, whatever, so this is how you log in. You go here to log in. You can put the URL for your library here, whatever information you need to communicate to your users. You can also have this go out by email as well. So if you've collected email addresses for all of your people, choosing this format option will allow you to not have to worry about printing it and then handing it out to the people, which there is a letter format that is probably best for mailing out if you do happen to need to mail these things. So, but we have that email feature throughout the program, and you'll see it in some other places. So the sort by is maybe only important if you're going to be actually physically printing them and handing them out. So I'm going to go ahead and click run here just so we can see what that report looks like. And again, this is the report that you would use if you're going to be giving your users information about how they'll be getting into the program. So let me go ahead and open this here as our account introduction. All right. So you'll see it's got the barcode that was set up for them and their username. So pretty straightforward, but a handy little tool for those of you who may not have an easier way of communicating that information to your people after you've got them set up in the library program. Perfect, so that kind of takes care of our beginning of the school year reports. Obviously there's a lot more. Those are just some of the more common ones. Moving on here, ongoing report needs throughout the year. First and foremost, we're going to talk about polling pending holds, and then move on to overdue lists and notice reports, and load items reports. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close our patrons section here. And you'll see most of those reports we just brought up are going to be under circulation. Kind of as I mentioned, we're going through certain sections. So under circulation, we're going to talk first about polling pending holds. Now, if I click my little drop down, I've got my sections. We actually have a full section for our holds reports. Now, this is one of those reports you're probably going to be scheduling again, I would think, to make it a lot easier on yourself. Pending holds, and the difference between the holds here, for those of you who may not think about it offhand, pending holds are holds that are still checked out by other students and are waiting to be fulfilled by a person or somebody who's waiting for that book to come in and be checked in. In-stock holds, that's holds that are now currently in stock in the library and can be fulfilled. Some of you may run that as well. Pending holds tends to be one of the more common. And then on-shelf holds is, Let's go ahead and click on pending holds. Here, go to our selections tab. And you'll see you have a few different options of how to set this up. Maybe if you're wanting to know by expiration date, by suspension date, if you're wanting to have it delved up by a specific homeroom or grade. If you're just wanting to see all your holds in general, though, usually you're not going to specify anything. And that works for most reports. If you're just wanting to see the whole group, you just leave your selections blank. So then under options, you can specify what that hold list is going to come out like. If you want to have it down by homeroom and then have a page break. So if you're in a library where all of your homerooms come in a group, this is a great way to see those holds and prepare for each class as it comes. So maybe you can break up your holds. So, and then now that we've got that set up and set up the way we want it to work, I would then go ahead and create a saved report so that I can have this run regularly for myself. I'm going to call it homeroom holds, pending holds. I like putting my name in there so I remember that it's mine. That works really well if you have a couple librarians or maybe different people doing different reports for different reasons. Go ahead and click OK there. All right, and you'll see we've got some demo ones in there. So I'm going to go ahead and alter this a little bit because I not only want it to run and be saved on a schedule, but I want it to email to myself. So I've got that report selected. It's unlocked. I've gone to the schedule tab. I've got it set up now to do a once, but I want to have it say run daily because I do my holds as my classes come in. And I want it to run first thing in the morning. So that way I get it before any of my classes come. And then under notification, I'm going to set up an email notification link. So that way it's going to me in my library email box. That way I don't have to come directly to the program. You don't necessarily have to have it emailed to you. You can just open it up through the program if that's easier. But for most folks, they're not constantly in the program. They may be in their email inbox a bit more. So that might be a handier place to have it drop. So also you can have it send a download link as well. So if you're wanting to download it, you can do that too in like a PDF format. Then when I run it, have my little wrench up here. And I'm not sure if my folks actually in this homeroom have any holds. They may not. This may, oh, you know what they do? There we go, cool. And you can get a quick list of those pending holds. Alrighty, perfect. Now popping over to our next one, we're going to look at overdue lists and notice reports. These also you may possibly save as well or set up to run regularly. Your overdue lists would probably be included under information. There's a few other reports that you might use to kind of see various information about fines or whatever. Everybody kind of has their report they like. So when you're getting, maybe at the beginning of the year or throughout the year, play with this, see which reports you like best. Everybody's got different needs. Some people like to see overdues. Some people don't do overdues. Some people collect fines, some people don't. So we're just kind of doing some general reports here that might work for some folks' needs. So I'm going to go ahead and say I just want to see an overdue items information report. I click that, and I can specify And you'll see my select bys change as I go from report to report. I'm sure you've all noticed that or seen that in your own day-to-day work. But we try to accommodate what the specific needs of that report would be by altering those. So again, if you have any suggestions, let us know. So say I want to see items that have only been overdue from a week on. That way I'm not seeing items that are overdue just within a week. Maybe the kids, you know, you give them a week just to be nice. So then popping under options, I want to see this again broken down by homeroom. So it's easier for me to pass that on to teachers. The reason I click page break and major sort, that separates each one of the homerooms to their own unique pages in the report. So that way you don't have spillover of one homeroom on the same page as another. It's a little easier to divvy up the different pages. And then down below under format, I can choose what information is going to be showing up on the report. If I want it to be simple, like a one line, if I want to include charges, etc. So I'm going to go ahead with a detailed with fines here. And then down below under show patron's name, if you want to have that on there. So, or a phone number. So if the teacher or whoever you're passing this off to needs a little bit more details, you can have that show up on the report. Now again, this is probably going to be one that you might have as a saved report because you might be emailing this to teachers regularly. So you would click create saved report, and maybe this one is going to, you know, Mrs. Schilling's homeroom class. Mrs. Schilling's overdue items or information. If that's the case, then you're probably popping under selections here, and you're specifying Mrs. Schilling's homeroom here. And usually folks send those out once a week, just so they're not spamming their teachers. But you pop under here in weekly and say we want to send it out on Mondays at 8 a.m. And then you would pop under notification, click enable email notification there, and put in Mrs. Schilling's email address. Oh, yeah, of course, we want to have the download link. So, excuse me. All right. So that's the way you'd have that report set up. Don't forget to hit save at the end either. But now Mrs. Schilling, she's going to get this report every week on a Monday at 8 a.m. And it's going to have a list of all those overdue items for her kids. And that's you communicating to whoever you need to help you make sure your books are getting back. All right, now let's look at notices. This is another way for you to go ahead and, okay. Yeah, let's look at notices. Notices is a great way for us to go ahead and send out a notice maybe to the individual themselves. The most common ones I would say I normally see being used are probably the coming due items notice. So, and what's nice about these is you can actually have these email out to your people directly. Another time that we want to pay attention to that email feature, that's if you collect email, but this way you can communicate this directly to the person, and you can have whatever text in there you'd like. So awesome email report options, but play with all these and see which one you like best. Loan items reports, also a common one for a lot of folk. That's included under the information tab here, right by your overdues. This one, it has some specific options for the format, depending on how much information you want to have on there for the books and also for the patrons. So pay attention that if you're choosing the one line, it's going to be very simple. So, but that's going to be very similar to setting up for your overdue items. This one you probably, you may email it out to your teachers. That's up to you guys and your internal needs. So, but those are ongoing reports throughout the year. Let's get to our end of report needs. So our collection analysis reports, popping under this section here, we'll go ahead and close our circulation. The most common here that you're going to be running is the super summary, kind of like I mentioned before. Now this is a pretty simple report. It's going to be a lot of different numbers. There's normally when you're setting up, I suggest doing a format of regular -ignore super summary call numbers. The reason for that is there is a national standard for how call numbers can be set up, and most folks don't follow it exactly. So you want to make sure you're saying ignore those super summary call numbers, because it will use your exact call numbers in your library. So you'll avoid seeing kind of a skewed report. So I'll go ahead and specify that. If you need to have your fiscal stuff set up, you can specify a year on that. Many folks don't have to necessarily account very specifically for that though, so oftentimes you leave it blank. I'm going to go ahead and just run that one so you can see it real quick. And that one may take a moment, so while it's kind of going, let's mention our lost and discarded copy reports. Oh, you know what's done. Let's go ahead and click on it. And then we'll look at those lost and discarded copy reports. So this is one you kind of have to play with a little bit and interpret, but it's broken down by different sections based on the counts, based on usage, and then also, it's those three sections. So, all right, go ahead and click out of that guy. Pop back to our reports here. So I mentioned our lost and discarded. So let's go ahead and pop under copies here and under special status. These are usually reports, like I said, you're running at the end of the year. So if you're wanting to see a list of all your discarded copies, you'll see there's an option there, or lost. And that's just what it is. Very simple. This works out really well maybe after you've done inventory, or just to get an idea of what books you have to replace at the end of the year. So that way you can see a whole list of those. And usually you want to run these before you've removed those groups. So if you're getting ready to remove all your lost or discarded, and you want to just have a digital copy of that list, make sure you run these first. And you'll see the selections are pretty standard. They're nothing fancy. You can specify when the item was moved to the lost status. That works well if you're wanting to see items that just went to lost this year, but you still hold on to years previous lost items for some particular reason, if you track them, whatever it is. If we pop under options, you also have the option of specifying whether the items went to lost from patrons or from inventory. That's handy because maybe from inventory, you wanted them out. You weeded them, or maybe they were just lost because somebody took them, or they fell somewhere. From patrons, maybe you've already got a process for replacing those, so you don't need to see those. You just need to see the ones that went to lost from inventory. So, our usage reports. Now, usage is a little different. You'll see usage, it is specific to each one of our sections here. We've got a patrons usage option, and we have a copies and titles usage option. So you kind of have to think what kind of usage specifically you're looking for. And so this is one you're going to be playing a little bit more with, and you kind of have to visualize. So do I want to see how often the books were checked out? Do I want to see, that's usually copies. Titles, that's which books maybe my people like the most, the ones they are using. That'll give you more kind of like larger group concepts. Then also you have the statistics options that we mentioned before. Still really handy even if you don't use your policy statistics groups, but you can set up very specific small groups based on those. So, that's pretty much all of those for those end of the year ones that we wanted to talk about. So just to kind of like re-go over what we've talked about, we talked about how to set up and run reports in Alexandria, went over the interface. We talked about beginning of school year reports. So that's all the reports that you want to run before the school year started. Get yourselves prepared. Ongoing report needs throughout the year, stuff that you're going to be seeing every day, end of the year report needs. So that's all the stuff that you might do once the school year is over, related to inventory, etc. So just a few things. Obviously, there's a ton more in there, but hopefully this gives you some good bite-sized stuff to kind of start with, help you feel more comfortable in the reporting interface. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring up our poll here. Wanted to get just a little bit of information from you. So feel free to go ahead and fill that out. And then once we're done with the poll, I'm going to go ahead and start our Q&A. So give you all a moment to do that and kind of collect yourselves and submit any other questions you might have. Please shoot those through, and we'll talk to you in a quick sec once we're done with the poll here. Thank you. All right, everybody. We've given that poll about 3 minutes. Thanks so much for taking a little time to go through that. Well, I'll leave it up here for just a moment longer as I'm talking, so take your time. So we're about to move into our Q&A portion. We've got some really good questions that we're going to cover. If perhaps we aren't able to get to your question We're sorry about that. We will try to finish up a few questions at the end once we're kind of done with the webinar. But you know, we may need to have you call into support if you've got like a bigger, more globulous question that you need answered. So I mean, I'm sure you guys already do that as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out of that poll. Don't worry if you didn't finish it. we're really appreciative of you going in and kind of giving us some quick feedback. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to Jake. Jake's going to go ahead and mention our first question that we have.
All right, Josh, thank you so much for doing that here. So we've had quite a few questions come in. There's some really good questions here. The first one, right out the gate, we've had a couple of people ask this one, is can you explain the difference between in-stock and on-shelf holds?
Perfect. I definitely can. Yeah. Sorry, I think I might have glossed over that. So let me just take us back to the main screen here. All right. And so the question, everybody, just to kind of go over that, is regarding hold reports. So you're in stock or you're on shelf here, these two in the middle. In stock holds are usually books that have come in, that have been checked in, and you have kept them up at the front desk, or you've gone out to the shelves and collected them. So maybe you've got a little section up at the front desk where you get all the books and you've got them laid out for the kids. You know, you've got like a little printed piece of paper or something you've put into the book, or maybe you've got shelves set up specifically for your homeroom teachers or something like that. That's an in-stock hold. On shelf holds, that means the books are actually out there on the shelves. And it's completely up to you if you want to be the person who goes out and collects the books off the shelves, or, you know, watches them as they come through and get checked in and set them to the side, or if you just want to train the kids to go out and find the books themselves when they've, you know, become available. A lot of people do it both ways. It depends on how big your library is, how much work you want to do. So hopefully that answers that question for y'all. All right, Jake.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Josh. Okay, so the next question that we have is in regards to, let me get back up here. So this one came in from Patricia Cotter. She's wondering if there's a report that we can show history for our on repair patron. The details limits to 50, so we want to see if we can see a little bit more than that. Do we have one for that on repair patron?
Yeah, definitely. Let's take a look at that, Patricia. It's a great question. So to answer that, I'm going to take us back to our copies section here. And in our copies, I'm going to take us to our special status area. Now, special, that refers to, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the system patrons that we have. That's where most of these kind of, you might have seen these terms before. The system patrons, those are those patrons with like a barcode of 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, so there's our lost copies patron, our discarded copies patron. So that's where these special statuses that you use in the program come from. And you'll see we have the on repair one under here as well. So if I click on repair copies, it's not too complicated of a setup. It's very similar to the lost or the discarded. You just give it whatever time period you want to see out for the on repair. And there you go. So pretty straightforward. And that's going to be a full, complete list of all those on repair items. So you can see everything in one go. Thanks, Patricia. Hopefully that gives you everything you need.
Excellent. Thank you, Josh. We have a question here from, let's see, a Jennifer Kuntz. This one's asking, for scheduling reports, is the daily option only Monday through Friday, or does it also include weekends?
Okay, yeah, perfect, definitely. So let's take a look at that, Jennifer. Great question. So we can actually use this report that we're under to look at that. So I'm going to hit create saved report. Hit OK here. And mainly where you want to be is you want to be under the schedule section. And you do have to click create saved report to get here, by the way. So I haven't mentioned that very specifically. That's the only way you can see your schedule section. And Jennifer, you'll see if you pop under weekly, you can specify the day that you want it to be on there, whether it's weekends, days. One thing to pay attention to is if you guys self-host your data, meaning we don't host it for you, you do have to make sure that your Alexandria data is up and running if you're going to have a report running at a specific time or on a specific day. So if you guys shut down your Alexandria server on the weekends, the reports aren't going to be able to run. So if you want something to go out on those specific days, you want to make sure it's up. All right, perfect. And yeah, I mean, play with those. Send yourself out. There's no limit to how many of those scheduled reports you can run. So.
Okay. All right, Josh, thank you. So everyone, just as a quick FYI, we do have a few questions in here. We only have time for about one, maybe two more, so we'll see what we can do here. If your question does not get answered, however, I will be doing some follow-up to get those messages out to you, and we'll be putting it together in FAQ to go along with this recorded video as well. So look for your answers in that as well going forward if you don't see it getting answered today. All right, Josh. So this one's a little bit different. We have a lot of people mentioning email reports. However, people are also saying they had problems with their email reports going out. This one is from M. Nicole. She's wondering, M. Cole, excuse me. They're wondering what needs to be set up for their email notifications and email reports to be sent from Alexandria. Would you mind going through those things really quick?
Not at all. That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop us out of reports since that's not really set up there. And there's going to be two sections we're going to take a look at, guys. You're going to want to go under Tools on the left here, out of your main circulation screen. Now the first section is under Administration up at the top right, that little 2 arrow button. Now you may not have seen this screen before. That's okay. Under here, you'll see there is an email option. Now this is where you go to set up any outbound email from the program. So this is anything you're sending to your patrons, to yourselves, any of that stuff. You do need to have your SMTP server address set up within here. Now, if you're not familiar with this information, which you very well may not be, you might need to consult with somebody internally there on your tech staff or in the main office and find out what you guys have for your internal address stuff. If perhaps you don't have a work email, there are other options you do have. Gmail is a great place to go to have, a nice professional email address set up. They can even use terms that don't use Gmail specifically as the email address, so it still looks like it's coming from your library. And they do have preferences that work really well with our program. But Gmail isn't the only one that you would have to use if you don't have a work address email. But make sure you find out all the specific information here. And each one of these fields is important. The SMTP server address, the port, whether you allow non-secure connections or not, and then also a username and password if that's needed for your particular server. For Gmail it is, for example, because you're using your Gmail account. You can also test that here and it will tell you if our program can communicate with it. So, and for those rare folks who happen to have more than one SMTP address, if they have, an ancillary one to be used in case anything's not working with the first one, you can set up 2 at a time. So that's the first place to go. For anybody who has more deep questions, do remember to click that little question mark up at the top right. You can get a lot of details out of there. So, and of course, you're always welcome to call us. We are happy to, walk you through anything more further. The second section we needed to go is if you pop back here to your main tools screen, you're going to hit Sites up at the top right. And that was just right here under Management, Sites. Under Sites, you're going to want to make sure you have the email address set up for the administrator of the program. That's usually, say, yourself, maybe a district librarian. The reason that that's set up there is because the program can send out clerical email and it needs to have that there just to bounce off of. So that's the last place. It's nice and simple, nothing fancy here. You just do need to have the email address set up. So, but that should take care of all of your needs for having that set up though. So, or Jake?
All right, Josh, thank you very much for going over those settings. I think that you're going to find that really useful here. So the last question that we have, and there are a few more, sorry that we can't get to all of the questions here, everyone. But this one was attached to an earlier question as well that kind of went into in-stock and on-shelf holds. I thought we could double back to it. This last one, though, is can we run a usage report by grade levels? Is that something that we can do in the program, Josh?
Yeah, usage report by grade levels for sure. Now, an important thing to think when you're wanting to choose a report that meets your needs, you have to think about what particular group you're going to be running the report, of. So grade level, that's patrons. So I would go to my patrons section, choose usage as my option here for reports. And I have a few different formats of how I can have that set up. library usage summary, that's going to be more kind of general numbers. If I want to see specifics per patron, I would be using the patron monthly usage or the detailed. The detailed is going to have more information. And then for those of you who, just to explain it, on the off chance that you like to see who your big checker outers are, or the people that come in and use the library the most, that's your top borrowing patron report. So, but I'm going to go ahead and just choose our patron monthly usage. The setup is going to look pretty similar to other reports. You're going to specify what particular group you want to see that for. If it's for the whole school, then you would probably leave it blank, or maybe give yourself a grade range, or specify whatever other group applies to your needs. Under options, you can specify what particular section or group as well there that you want to have it sorted by, so that you're seeing it in a particular order that's useful for you. And then also probably most importantly is you're specifying the date range for that usage. And you'll see this on the other reports too, more or less. It's going to look something pretty similar to this. And that's usually where you specify this particular school year. So that's one of the more handy sections to go for patron usage by grade, because you can specify that grade there under your selections. Do pay attention that you do have options. There's that grade right there. You do have options to have statistic reports that will show you stuff that can be broken down by grade. However, if you're not using those policy groups with the statistics groups, you may be a little limited, because we offer these statistics reports as more kind of a general number collection. But if you have specific policy groups and statistics groups for each grade, then you're going to get those numbers per grade or per statistics group. So maybe that might be something to look at in the future if you're wanting very specific numbers for very specific groups. So again, if you have any further questions, after you've played with it, it's still not making sense, please feel free to give us a call. We can walk you through whatever might be needed. So are we all set on questions there, Jake? Sorry, guys, if we weren't able to get to your question. We sincerely appreciate your understanding with our time. we're beyond it right now. But call us, talk to us. Customer support. Jake will be doing some follow up. Like you said, we're going to send out that FAQ. Thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully this was an exciting and fun opportunity for you to learn more about reports. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the program and to better your usage. So we're going to have this up as a recorded and saved webinar available to you. You guys should be seeing emails come out to you letting you know more information about that. I'm going to go ahead and post our survey real fast here for you in chat, so that you guys can see that survey. Like I said, please fill that out for us. Let me go ahead and take us over to our fun slide here so you can see any follow-up information. But yeah, you will see that chat survey coming through here in just one moment. So appreciate your patience. You'll also see a link to that survey as well going out through email. So that's another place you guys can fill that out. But please give us all the feedback that you need. Give us suggestions for other webinar ideas. We would love to hear what your thoughts are. If there's a particular section of the program that you feel that you or all of your librarian friends struggle on, in your district or your area, or within your library, we want to hear about that. So again, a very big last thank you so very much for your time. It was lovely working with you all today. It was a pleasure. Hope to hear from you in person over the phones here soon. Take care, y'all.